Hello and welcome to Health Digest, a program where we bring you news, analysis, development, and everything that concerns your well-being. I'm Ogom Sidimbo. On the program today, we are talking salt. It's a staple in every kitchen and a natural enhancer of flavor. But beyond the taste, how much do we really know about its impact on our health? His Salt Awareness Week will take a closer look at this common ingredient and one that's essential for life, yet potentially harmful in excess. So we dive into the benefits, the risk, and most importantly, the balance. How much salt is too much? And what does the science really say? And how can we make better dietary choices for ourselves and families? And with me in the studio is Dr. Jerome Mafeni, Network for Health Equity and Development Technical Advisor. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
We're talking salt.
Yeah.
What exactly is salt?
Salt is naturally occurring material that can be harvested from seaside, because you know your sea is salty, so you can get salt from the sea and from salt rock deposits, you know, where people go and essentially harvest, you know, those raw salt deposits, and of course it can also be made chemically, you know, by combining the two ingredients that make up salt, which is sodium and chloride, and so it can be made industrially. And so essentially that is salt. It's a common ingredient, and it's one that's also important for our daily well-being, because it's necessary for supporting several bodily functions, such as the functions of the nerves, of the muscles, you know, and even of the blood system. And so it's not exactly a product we should run away from, because it's essential for daily living. However, I think what we're focusing on today is the harm that comes from consuming excessive salt.
Now, I always hear people talk about sodium. I hear people talk about salt. Are they one and the same, or they are two different things?
Not quite. Sodium is a component of salt. Salt, the common table salt, is made up of sodium and chloride, and that's your normal table salt.
The one we use in the kitchen?
Yes, the one you use in the kitchen. But you also have other products that may not contain chloride, but will contain sodium. So you have things like sodium. In the chemical term, it's called sodium mono, you know, whatever, MSG. It's let me not complicate it. That is used in your stock cubes, your bouillon cubes, the various cubes. I don't want to call trade names,
Okay.
that you use, you know, to also spice your cooking. And there are also other elements that combine with sodium that can also be used, you know, for other purposes. But the commonest variant of sodium is sodium chloride, which is the common table salt.
Let's narrow down now to the benefits of salt. Are there some positive role that salt plays in our body?
Yes, salt is an essential part of your body. It helps to maintain the acid alkaline balance,
Okay,
right, within your body. And that acid alkaline balance within your body also helps to influence the function of your nerves and the function of your muscles, you know, etc. That is why when people haven't when people are salt deficient, like athletes who sweat a lot and they're while they are running, you suddenly find out they're getting muscle cramps. When they get muscle cramps, what do we give them? It's salt to help them to restore that homeostasis so that the muscles can stop twitching. So salt is an essential ingredient of the body. And apart from the fact that it's an essential ingredient of the body, it also contributes to the enjoyment and the flavors that we get from the foods that we consume. And so it also helps us to eat well, so to speak, because the foods now become tasty because of the salt content, of those foods.
Now, we're focusing on the excess of salt intake. What are the dangers associated with consuming too much salt?
Well, maybe let us start first by defining what is excess. I think it's sometimes difficult for people to visualize what is excess. The World Health Organization has recommended, that you shouldn't have more than 2 grams of sodium per day, which is like, 5 grams, total, which is essentially, if you imagine a teaspoon and you put salt in a teaspoon and you level that teaspoon, that's the amount of salt you require in a day.
In a day?
In a day. But most people, of course, take more than twice that amount.
Is it from the cooking?
From everything.
Okay.
From everything that you do. So the cooking,
but
the eating.
If I cook, that salt, that teaspoon level will not bring out the taste of my food.
That is where the problem is. That is where the problem is. So that is the excess. And that is where the problem is. Because somehow, over time, we have become acculturated, accustomed to consuming too much salt. And so even when you cook meals and you do not put salt, people will demand for salt and get the salt shakers and still add salt. Even when the food sometimes is already salty, people will come and still demand for excess salt to add to it. And that is the danger. But the bigger danger, actually, is not even the salt that we consume from home cooking. That is a danger in and of itself. It's actually the dangers that we experience from ultra-processed foods, foods processed by industry, where they concentrate the salt in much higher concentrations than what we will ever use at home. But because they've done it in such a way and packaged, products, like your very lovely, crispy chips that people buy. Like I said, I'm not calling trade names. All the, various fast foods that we consume. They ultra process, these things, and they put in so much salt, much higher, than what you will ever consume at home. And that is the big and present danger. And so what we are trying to advise people is to recognize that you don't need too much salt in your diet. You need salt, yes, but not too much. Just enough to maintain your bodily functions. And once you begin to taste salt in the food that you eat, it's already getting towards excess. So and gradually, as you begin to reduce your salt consumption, your tongue and your tastes and your taste buds will adjust to the reduction in the salt that you are consuming. So after a while, you get so used to the lower salt concentrations that you no longer feel it. And when you go to a place where they're giving you salt that is of much higher concentration, your tongue instantly recognizes that this food has too much salt. And I think that's what we're trying to get our people to understand. And we're also working with the government to ensure that government puts in place mandatory standards for industry so that in the products that industry puts out in the market, the various products do not exceed particular standards, particular benchmarks for salt in their products, so that way we can save our populace. Now, coming back to your original question, which is what are the dangers of consuming excessive salt? If you consume excessive salt, then you make yourself predisposed to getting hypertension and heart diseases in general, stroke, heart failure, etc., etc. In addition to that, you could also have problems with your kidneys and kidney failures, and you could also have other problems related to sodium within, so whether it's sodium chloride normal or it's sodium glutamate from other sources. The sodium itself could also lead to, a potential for you to develop cancers and other diseases of the body. But the bigger killer is the effect it has on hypertension and the heart system.
But are there people who probably may need some higher salt intake? Do we have any group of people like that?
No, there's nobody that requires higher salt intake. There's a basic minimum.
Well, for health reasons or anything.
There's a basic minimum that all human beings require. So all human beings require salt. You cannot eat a totally saltless diet. You will have problems. Your muscles will be twitching. You have muscle fatigue. Your nerves will be going crazy. So everybody requires salt. So salt in itself is not a bad thing. The problem is the excessive consumption, which is why as you grow older, for people who are hypertensive, when you go to the doctors will tell you, please cut down the salt in your meals. So even though you're taking medication, they'll tell you, cut down the salt in your meals. And so the key is, if you are within the normal range that the body requires, you have absolutely no problem. Salt is good. But once you start going past the normal range, and most of us have become accustomed to taking more than what we require. And that is why there's an increase in the prevalence of hypertension.
You know how our Nigerian dishes are heavily on salt and seasoning and all of this. So how do we balance all of this?
That is what we need to change. So, for example, one of the cooking practices that is very common with our people is you boil your meat, you boil your fish, you boil your chicken, you boil whatever it is, and of course, that itself comes with salt. You've already salted the thing, and you've salted everything, so the thing's already salty. Then you take the stock water of that meat that you boiled, or chicken, or fish that you boiled, and then you now start to add your soup ingredients and whatever else you want to add. And even when you've done that, right, you're still not satisfied. You still go and look for extra salt to put. You look for seasoning to put. So of course you made the meal extremely salty. And once the meal is extremely salty, then you are killing yourself and killing the people you are feeding. And so what we're trying to advise those who prepare meals is, okay, salt is used to preserve meat, is used to preserve fish, is used to preserve many products. So even when they put them in cans, they put them in salt because it helps to preserve those products. When you want to cook with them, right, if you boil your stock water, throw away the stock water or use a very small quantity of it, right, rather than use the entire quantity of the stock. You can keep the stock.
I should throw my stock water?
Or you can keep the stock and then be using it in small quantities, rather than using the entire stock for a particular pot of soup. That is where the problem is, because you're already used to too much salt, so you think that is what makes it sweet.
So you talked about government policies. Do you think if government brings out policy and all of that, will all of that change the perception of a human being when it comes to cooking like this?
Well, what government is doing, like I said, the bigger danger is actually the ultra-processed foods, processed from industry. Our children and our young adults have acquired the taste for, pre-packaged food products, and these pre-packaged food products tend to have well in excess, the salt concentration we require, for daily living. And what we're working with government to do is, if we set benchmarks for industry and industry begins to reduce, the salt in their products, gradually
How would that be monitored?
We have regulatory agencies. We have NAFDAC. We have
it's one thing to be on the pack that, okay, this is a gram I've added for salt. How is it really what is inside the product you're eating?
Yes, it's what is inside the product you're eating. So there are many things. There are many things that we're doing together. So one thing, of course, is to get industry to comply with a benchmark and new standards. The other thing is to put labels on the products to say this product you're about to buy, right, has high salt concentration, or has high sugar concentration, or has high oil concentration. So you see a big warning label. So that, because most people don't read labels, because the labels most times are at the back, they are very technical, they're usually in microscopic writing, People don't bother reading labels. All they read when they carry products is where's the NAFDAC number or where's the expiry date. And besides expiry date and NAFDAC number, people don't look at anything else. Right? So, but if you put big warning labels on the front of the packages that says high in salt, this product high in salt, and when you as the mother is going to the shop to buy food for the house and you see the products high in salt, it doesn't say that you shouldn't buy the products. It just gives you a warning that, if I'm buying this product, then it means that I have to watch what else I'm giving my family that is exposing them to more salt than they should normally consume. So again, the use of warning labels helps. Then just the gradual reduction in salt content of the foods that we eat, the foods produced by industry, makes our palates to gradually change, even without our noticing. Right? And once the palate changes its taste profile, then we are being protected, even without knowing that we're being protected. It's easier to do things at the population level and protect the whole populace than try to change every single person's behavior, because behavior is very hard to change. We can talk on TV, we can talk on programs and get people to understand, but habits are hard to change. But if we begin to get people to gradually reduce, the sources through which they consume excessive salt, gradually, their desire for salt will begin to drop. I can give you a personal example. I mean, I like everybody else, used to eat meals that were cooked with plenty of salt, with Maggi and Royco and whatever else people use, and then I became hypertensive. Hypertension runs in my family, and of course, the first thing doctors will tell you, of course, cut down your salt. Exactly. And then I began to impose on my household, because of me, that everybody drops salt in the food that we eat. And of course, it was hard for the household, but gradually, everybody got used to it. So now when we go out to parties and other places, we can't eat the food outside because it's extremely salty. So it's like that.
You talked about young adults, young children who are beginning to have great taste for processed food. Could that be the reason why having high rates of hypertension among young adults? Absolutely.
That's one of the reasons. That's one of the strong reasons why you are seeing people in their 20s, in their 30s, now showing signs of hypertension. And not only signs of hypertension, but complications of hypertension, meaning you see young people at 20 and 30 getting stroke. When we were growing up, people got stroke when they were in their 70s and 80s. Yeah. But now I see people getting stroke in their 20s and 30s. That's one of the causes.
Okay, now talking about changing behavior, is there any way religious and cultural belief can affect public perception? Because recently, a certain clergyman came out to say salt is important, take salt, take this, but it wasn't specific about excess use of salt. So is there any way this can change?
Yes, I think I saw that video clip that was shared very widely, and it created the impression that doctors were giving false messages and creating false alarms, and so it was open sesame for people to consume as much salt as they wanted, and that in fact the more salt that they consume, the better for them.
Crisis.
So that for me was not a very good message. There is no question about the fact that salt is required for the body. Salt itself is not bad. Salt is good. It's part of what you require for daily living, right? But we should not create the impression that because we require salt for daily living, because salt has been mentioned several times in the holy books, so therefore people should just go, ad libitum and consume salt anyhow they like. It's a dangerous message. The key point is that there is a certain threshold beyond which the excess salt begins to have bad effects on the body. And I think that we should re-emphasize that message, that it is not healthy to consume too much salt.
Now, I personally, when I wake up in the morning, I have my warm water with a pinch of salt every morning.
You drink it or you use it too?
I drink it.
A pinch of salt is a pinch of salt.
I know they have so many persons in my category as well.
It will add to the other sources of salt that you will consume in the rest of the day. Yes, it will add. Yes, but salt in water in itself is not a bad thing. I know, for example, dentists will always advise you when you've had the dental procedure to always use salt and water to rinse your mouth as often as you can, because salt itself has medicinal properties. Like I said, it affects the alkaline balance of your body, but it also affects the microbes that will be in your body and helps, your well-being. And so, again, re-emphasizing the point, if you drink a little bit of salt every morning, it should do you no harm. The amount of salt you put in the water that you drink in the morning is not enough to push you to excess if you are not also consuming other sources of salt that will help you push, beyond your required daily allowance, of the salt that you consume.
All right, Doctor, we are creating awareness on salt intake. We want you to give your last word to Nigerians, your final thoughts.
I think for me, what I'd like to say is that Nigeria is currently experiencing an epidemic of non-communicable diseases. And the big non-communicable diseases are people are experiencing hypertension and heart diseases, as well as kidney failure. Those two in particular. And of course, diabetes from excess sugar. And all these non-communicable diseases are very preventable. And people are actually acquiring these diseases from their lifestyle and their taste for salt. If we can reduce our taste for salt, if we can reduce our salt consumption, that is one less thing for us to worry about that will help to protect, the future of this country and generations to come.
Thank you so much, and Dr. Jerome Mafeni, the Network for Health Equity and Development Technical Advisor. Thank you so much for your contributions on the program.
Thank you.
And that's our package for today. I'm Ogom Ezedimbo. Do stay safe.